Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'd like to just remind you that you have 10 minutes. I can't see
Okay.
you, but I can hear you.
All right. I'm here representing the Live Communities for the part lot control application to create easements for rear yard access and retaining wall maintenance. And I don't have a presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Eric? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Oh, actually, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to receive it? You have to do something with it. Councillor McAlpine. Thank you. Seeking a seconder. Councillor Oakley. All those in favor? And right when I've got a break here, I want to just acknowledge that we do have an addendum here, 4.1, and that was Eric.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
4.2, John, representing the IB. There he is. If you can just state your name and who you represent, and you have 10 minutes, please.
Members of Council, John Arians from Arcadis. I'm here on behalf of the property owner in Canesville, Mr. Fred Rossi. Fred is in the gallery with me today. I'm here speaking in support of the staff report prepared for his zoning application and his official plan amendment. I'd like to compliment Ms. Dusling and her team here. This is a very detailed, comprehensive report. It succinctly summarizes the development application and provides very strong planning rationale in support of the project. As you're all aware, the county has a brand new official plan in place, and this official plan designates this property as a community corridor. Within community corridors, high density development, mixed use, commercial uses are all permitted. I think the maximum height is 10 stories. What is before you is a 6-story apartment building and 3-story townhouses. What is before you is fully aligned with the direction of your new official plan. So you're probably saying, well, Arians, why do we have an official plan amendment to go along with this application? And that has to deal with servicing. As you're aware, part of the annexation agreement with the city requires the city to provide services to Canesville because the lagoons are at capacity. We don't know how long that servicing studies are going to take, when the pipes will be in the ground. So your official plan has a policy that says you can apply holding zones, and that's exactly what the zoning bylaw is doing. But the official plan also says holding can only occur when the development is planned to occur within a 3-year period. Well, we don't know if it's going to be 2 years or 4 years or how long. Those studies for Canesville are currently underway. I believe they're almost completed, but again, we don't know when the pipes will be available to accommodate this development. So hence we have an official plan amendment to deal only with the timing aspects of a holding zone. And I'm going to suggest to you that it's in our common interest to do this because, as you know, infrastructure like decommissioning sewage lagoons, extending sanitary services will cost a substantial amount of money, and that's typically financed through development applications like this and through development charges. So having the zoning in place for this property with an H, even if it takes 4 years, is in all of our best interest so that when the infrastructure is ready, there are development applications in the queue that'll help pay for the substantial costs that are involved in infrastructure projects such as this. So that's the only reason why an official plan amendment is necessary. The zoning basically coincides with the site plan that has been presented at the public meetings and the open house for this project. It's a nice infill development backing onto a trail on a major arterial roadway with transit only 200 meters to the west in the city of Brantford being available. So from that standpoint, this is an ideal area to accommodate this form of intensification and infilling. So with all due respect, we respectfully ask that council endorse the staff report and approve the two planning instruments that are before you. And I'm here to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does committee have any questions for the presenter? Councillor Oakley?
Through the mayor to the delegation. So quite timely last week, we had a report on affordable and attainable housing and county and metrics. Is there currently intent within any of the buildings to provide what is our definition of affordable or attainable housing, either as rentals or condos? Keeping in mind that our definition of attainable housing is housing that's affordable for the median buyer, which is a family that makes $106,000 a year, and that would work out to a purchase price of roughly $404,000.
So through the mayor to the councillor, at this point in time, sir, we're securing zoning permissions. The actual detailed design of the project will follow at a site plan stage. The project includes standard townhouses and stacked townhouses, what I would call garden apartments basically, and then conventional apartments. It represents a more affordable form of housing than conventional single family homes. But the ultimate design of the project, the ultimate price points, we're not there at this point yet. But I can assure you that this will contribute to the range and supply of housing in the county, and it will include a more affordable, attainable component.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Howe is your next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick follow-up on that.
Yes.
You mentioned the apartment building, and our community certainly needs that type of housing product. I just wanted to confirm, you're talking about rental apartments, not condos, correct?
At this point in time, I can only identify it as an apartment building, sir. Whether it'll be residential rental or condo, or it could even be a condo with purpose-built rental included, I can't speak to that. That'll be determined in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, when we actually go through the site plan process.
Any other questions?
If I could add to that, a lot of investors will buy a condo and rent it out. So even if it was condo, it would still have a rental component. Thank you.
No other comments? Thank you, and it is a wonderful infill project, I think. It's I know that in speaking to Mr. Rossi, he's got the community's interest at heart, and wished we had have been one step ahead of him, and we could have put our own affordable housing there. But you've got a great spot there, Fred, and I think it's going to work out fine. What do you want to do with this, Councillor Coleman?
Move to receive.
Seeking seconder, Councillor Howes. Any other questions, concerns, comments? All those in favor to receive? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. We don't have any. We don't have any business arising from those minutes. Number 7 is a staff report, and Pam's going to give that to us, and that's on 1318 Coburn Street.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will ask for council's patience this evening. As you know, we've had some staff turnover, and the planner for this project, Amanda Wozniak, is left the county, and Matt Vaughn was going to give the presentation, but he fell ill late this afternoon. So I do not know the details of these developments as well as they do, but Dan Nazmiak is here to make sure that I'm doing it right. So while the presentation is being loaded, I will start by saying that this is a zoning bylaw application. It's in the name of Ethos Automation. It's application number ZBA 223AW, and the applicants are Karen Spierenberg, and it's in care of Paulson Construction. And the address of the application is 1318 Colburn Street West in Burford. The application is to rezone a portion of the subject lands from agriculture to light industrial and to permit a parking reduction. It's to permit a parking reduction to facilitate the creation of 2 new industrial building lots and retain the farmland. And the planner, who is Amanda Wozniak, her recommendation is for approval.
Everyone has a printed copy in front of them. So if we don't find the presentation, we're okay with drawings and shadings and coloring and all the things that this report has in front of us. Does anyone have any questions to a lost and forgotten report?
We found it.
No? Councillor Miller?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, to Pam, just regarding the transportation impact study. It says county comments will be forthcoming. And when we look at traffic impact study, unfortunately, I think we just look at this particular industry, correct? Or business. We don't consider this with all the others going on there.
Through you, the Mayor, to Councillor, yes, that's correct. This is per this particular development, although that would also include the surrounding area. So those counts are taken into place, but it's for the new development of this property.
And the reason I'm asking is because, yeah, we sell off a parcel for a business, we sell off another parcel, we say, and as we've seen on Paris Road, it adds up, and eventually you realize that and I brought it up before, that intersection at Colburn Street West and Bishopsgate, it needs some attention, but I'll leave that for tonight. It's not going to change the outcome of this, but it needs to be addressed at some point. So, okay, thank you.
Pam, do you want to continue with the presentation?
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. On slide 2, you can see that the lands are located on the south of Bishop Gate, as Councillor identified, and their Colburn Street West intersection. The portion to be rezoned for development has an area of approximately 3.95 hectares, and it is along Bishop Gate Road. The surrounding land uses are agriculture, employment, residential, and commercial, and the retained farmland is expected to have an area of approximately 40 hectares. And it is located with a frontage along Colburn Street West. And it's understood that the retained lands include a single detached dwelling and an accessory structure. And the size of the retained lands do satisfy the minimum zoning requirements of the lands zoned as agriculture. Just to provide a bit of context, there have been similar approvals in the recent past, including in 2012, the rezoning and severance of Triggers and Bows, in 2020, the rezoning and severance of Roswell Concrete, and then in 2022 and 2023, we have a rezoning and severance of 5 other industrial users. So the request is similar in development and nature. Again, the application is to create 2 new industrial lots to facilitate warehousing. So one parcel with an area of approximately 1.93 hectares with a parking ratio of 1 off-street parking space per 135 square meters of the gross floor area of the warehouse, and the other parcel at an area of approximately 2 hectares with a ratio of 1 off-street parking space per 135 square meters of gross floor area. So the lot creation and shared access easements will be facilitated through future consent applications. And the total parking reduction is approximately 35% being requested. A number of studies and requirements were received as part of the complete application, and they are listed on page 2 of the report. And the proposed rezoning application was presented for information on July 11th to the Planning and Development Committee. And during this statutory public meeting, committee sought clarification on behalf of the public comments received about the mitigation measures for noise. So staff do confirm that a noise analysis was included in the planning justification report and was reviewed by staff. And furthermore, staff have confirmed that site plan control process potential mitigation measures through landscaping can be incorporated. In regards to the stormwater, it should be mentioned that on June 20th, 2023, the General Manager of Operations did petition under the Drainage Act to evaluate the drainage along Bishop's Gate. And the petition was approved by Administration Operations Committee, and an engineer has been appointed. And they are currently consulting with the engineer this week. And following that meeting, there will be provided more detail and information regarding the next steps to the developers. But it is understood that as an interim measure, the severance and site plan applications can proceed, and that county staff will work with the applicant on short-term approvals until the drainage along Bishop's Gate is completed in 2024. The subject lands are currently designated employment and agriculture in the Brant County official plan, and the subject lands are zoned agriculture, light industrial, and heavy industrial in the zoning bylaw. And tonight, the applicant is seeking a council decision under the Planning Act. The county planner is recommending approval. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement. It conforms to the growth plan of the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and it is in general conformity to the County of Brant official plan and the zoning bylaw. And at this time, if you have any questions, Dan and I are happy to try to answer them.
Are there any questions for committee? Councillor Pierce, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor, through you. So we speak about all the letters and stuff we got. They all speak of noise and traffic. And you mentioned that at site plan, that noise reduction can be incorporated. Can we make that will be incorporated or can be incorporated?
Through the mayor, they will be incorporated.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Pam. Pam, yeah, you mentioned noise mitigation. And when we look at a plan application such as this, and I've had this conversation with Amanda Wazinski, not Wozniak, we only look at the noise mitigation of this particular application. Now, I'll say, if you're going to have anybody industrial build across from you, it would be these guys, because they're not that noisy. We visited their place. It's actually going to be a fairly decent fit. But the problem is, and I'm going to ask if you can put on your general manager hat. You take this application, and again, like I mentioned with the traffic, it's cumulative, right? There's more traffic, there's more trucks. How do we deal with the noise mitigation when you get this accumulation? I don't imagine. I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is an area study. We're not going to do an area study for that, but is there a process, and maybe it's through Public Works, maybe it's not through planning. I don't know. If I were to ask you for advice, how would we go about looking at that so that we could get something in place for these residents? Because, yeah, right. I know Robert's been to one of our residents' backyards. I've been there, and you can't even have a conversation in their yard. It's in 20 years ago when they moved in, you could. Wasn't that bad, but it's so hard now. And again, it's one application after another, they're cumulative. So what in your general manager's opinion would be the best way to approach this?
Through the mayor to councillor, great question. I can say in a perfect world, we would have had policies in this area that would have had development move forward altogether in more of a plan of subdivision, which then we could have created some conditions and requirements for noise, traffic, those sorts of things. But under the current official plan policy regime, that did not exist. We have made improvements in the new official plan. But the good thing about this proposal is that it's moving forward at the same time as a number of other applications in that area, which you have seen or will be seeing right shortly. And similar to how the county is undertaking the drainage solution, we can work with all of the developers in that area to have complete noise barriers or attractions so that it's continuated through those developments.
Okay, we will carry this conversation on later because there's a couple other things I'm looking for, but it's a start anyways. Thank you, Pam.
Councillor Chambers?
Just a couple comments first of all, with regard to the traffic, the on-site traffic is, as Councilor Miller said, with this development is probably as good as it may, can be, because it is a maybe a not so obtrusive use. There could be other examples where it could be a lot worse, which doesn't necessarily negate the problems associated with it. A couple issues. First of all, the access and egress, the driveway coming in and out. There's residences right across from where the driveway will be. So it would be nice to have some sort of a respect for the house where the cars are coming in and out of right across the road, which may be cause it may be an annoyance. The other thing with regard to noise mitigation on site, you have to be very, very careful in this situation, because if you put berms or walls up on the east side of Bishopsgate Road, you create an echo effect for those on the west side of the road for the traffic going down Bishopsgate, which would create a worse problem for the residents on the west side. It may prevent noise from the property going to the west side, but if there's an echo effect and I'm not a sound engineer, but the Doppler effect and all that kind of stuff with noise bouncing around off berms and that in that area. So you have to be careful with noise mitigation that you don't create a situation worse than what it already is. So those are the comments. And my last comment was, and I said this way back when, situations like this, I know it's difficult. The property owner sells lot by lot by lot. Would have been a classic example where an industrial subdivision should have been, in my opinion, uh, created, whereby access and egress, internal roads, and noise mitigation on the whole site, the whole property, would be a lot easier to put into play than by lot, and Councilor Miller alluded to that as well. So they're just some of the comments, and again, with regard to this particular development, I support it because I think it is a development that may be more conducive to the neighborhood than perhaps another use that may qualify to be used.
Any other comments? Seeing none, looking for a motion? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Pierce, no other discussion? Recommendations in front of us. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.2, which is 1130 to 1146 Coburn Street East. Pam, you're going to speak to this report too?
Thank you. Through you, the mayor, this is an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment in the name of MRC Tech Inc. and the application number is ZBA 3121AD and OPA 21AD, OPA 221AW. The applicants are Arcadius IBI Group with John Arians, and the address is the application is 113 to 1146 Colburn Street East in Canesville. The application is proposing a mixed-use residential development with commercial, and there are many specific requests to accommodate the development as listed on pages 1 to 3 of the report, and a number of studies have been provided to support the development proposal. The planner, which was Shannon LaBelle, recommended approval. The subject lands are located on the north side of Colburn Street East. Within Canesville, the subject lands are rectangular in shape and currently have a frontage of approximately 168 meters along Colburn Street East and a maximum depth of approximately 78 meters. and an area of approximately 1.6 hectares. The subject lands are currently occupied by the Crossroad Antique Market, which is the trading post, Lil Louise Eats and Sweets, and one single detached dwelling. And the subject lands are municipally serviced by the county or the city of Brantford through the boundary adjustment agreement with the county. And surrounding land uses do include residential to the north, with the city of Brantford including passive recreation and commercial and employment uses to the east, west, and south. The development proposal can be easily described through an official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. As John identified earlier, the purpose of the proposed official plan amendment is to amend the current designation from general commercial to urban residential with a holding provision for the servicing capacity that goes beyond the 3-year requirement. I should note that the municipal sanitary and water services in Canesville are intended to be used for commercial employment and limited residential uses under the boundary agreement, and it is understood that the subject lands can be considered limited residential development as proposed to this scale that's considered to be minor. Furthermore, I can confirm that the servicing study is currently in phase 3 of 5 and is evaluating alternative solutions to servicing. The final Canesville servicing study report is prepared through the rest of the calendar year in 2023, and it has been confirmed that water and wastewater services will be brought to this area. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is more specific and includes rezoning a portion of the subject lands from general commercial to holding residential multi-high density with site-specific provisions 24 to rezone a portion of the subject lands from general commercial to holding residential multiple high density with site-specific provisions 25 to facilitate the mixed-use residential development with various site-specific provisions. As you can see, the rezoning will allow for 3 specific developments on site. One is for a 1 6-story mixed-use apartment building, including 86 units and a ground floor commercial area of 460 square meters. 2 is for 20 units in a 3-story row house, and 3 is for 32 units in a 3-story townhouse. So these developments will include 259 parking spaces. And it should be noted that this site plan is very conceptual and may be changed throughout the site plan and plan of condominium application processes, which are forthcoming. Currently, the subject lands are designated general commercial in the County of Brant official plan and general commercial in the County of Brant zoning bylaw. And tonight, the applicant and agent are seeking a council decision under the Planning Act. The county planner is recommending approval as the application supports a range of residential housing types. The application will facilitate future employment opportunities and will encourage residential and commercial development within the area designated to accommodate this type of growth. The application is also in conformity with the policies of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and with the general intent of the policies for the County of Brant official plan and zoning bylaw. And again, at this time, if council has any questions, Dan or I are able to answer.
Thank you, Pam. Councillor Pierce, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Yeah, first of all, I'm going to start by saying I think this is a perfect infill as well. I think it's going to be, if it goes through, I think it's going to be a great use of space. If you look through the report, and I know this isn't finalized and stuff like that, there's requirements and proposed, and some of the requirements are, some of the proposals for the requirements are quite a reduction in them, but there are some that are actually more than what's required, and I can appreciate that. I can, go through them all with the square footages and stuff like that. That's all fine. There's some more, some less, but I'm going to go specifically to parking. If we look at the parking and the number of spaces, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we look at the parking spaces, the requirements there, I'm on page, I guess it's 25 of 42, when it speaks of the apartment dwelling, 1 space for bachelor, 1.25 for the 1 bedroom, 1.5 for the 2 bedroom. So, and then the proposed is 103 spaces. That's 122 spaces less than what's required. If you go down a little bit further and it talks about the row houses and the stacked row houses. The stacked row houses, it's 2 spaces per unit. 32 units is 64. They're proposing 32. So if you total that up, and now don't get me wrong here, and when I said there was more, there's 16 more visitor parking spots than are required. But if we total that up, that's a total of 138 less parking spots they're proposing than what's required. And we all know, you know, we all understand what happens with parking. They say that, you know, that's considering 2 vehicles per unit, and I understand the bus is only 200 meters down the road. I get that, and I appreciate that. But reality of what we are living in is there's more than 2 vehicles per dwelling. That's just reality. Whether you want to slice it or dice it, that's reality. So again, I like what's been proposed here. My biggest drawback here, and I know it's not finalized yet, is the parking. We need to ensure that number, I don't mind it being a little bit below required, but to me, that's going to be trouble. Other than that, if I look at it, there was one other, just bear with me, I made one other point here. Where was it? My apologies. I just got to find where I marked the pages. The other was the frontage on some of them. I mean, I understand it's for the row houses, but again, if I'm doing quick math, they're approximately 20 foot, and again, that's you know 6 feet less than what's required. So again, I can potentially go with the smaller lots, but the parking to me is the issue. I'm not sure if you can respond to that now or that'll be done later, but that's my comment on it. Thank you.
Pam, do you want to?
Through the mayor, I have no comment, but it's well noted.
Well, it's a good time to be bringing these things up since there is no site plan. And if we're airing our concerns now, then I mean, it would be a very clever thing for the developer to do than to satisfy us at this point. Councillor Oakley.
So I just wanted to comment as well that you know I largely think that this is you know a great infill development. It's providing types of units that we don't have. I hope that when we get to the site plan application part aspect that we are eagerly looking for affordable and attainable units to be a part of it. Well, yeah, as Councillor Pierce said, there is the bus nearby. I am reluctant that we would be giving up this many parking spaces without there being a guarantee of the affordable and attainable housing. Giving up those spaces has precedent for affordable and attainable housing in other municipalities. I would be reluctant giving up that much parking without having the guarantee. But again, hopefully we can have the conversation when we get to the site plan agreement, because otherwise, I mean, it's a great use of the space. So.
Thank you, Councillor Oakley. Any other comments? Councillor Kyle first, and then Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Pam, and Pam, you may not have the answer to this question, but just going through the report, I noted that there are no comments from either of the school board. It's my understanding that the school boards are now obligated to provide us with comments on any of these applications. So just wondering if it's, again, I agree with my colleagues. I think it's a great use of this space and think it's what we need, but just want to make sure that the school boards have both weighed in on whether or not there's capacity for the number of children that might be coming as a result of this development.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just responding to what Councillor Oakley said, but maybe I misheard him, but I think he said when we see the site plan, but we won't see the site plan. And there's a holding pattern on this. So just through you to Mr. Mayor to Pam, this will never come back before us, or will it just to lift the H at some point in the future?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it depends really how the developer wants to proceed. If a plan of condominium is forthcoming, you may see it again. If it's a site plan or a site plan with a condominium waiver, then you would not see it again. But you will see it to remove the holding, which will be a trigger that the site plan, if that's the route, is satisfied by staff. And we can explain that, or you could ask questions at that time.
Okay, but at the same time, when it comes to us, it's not a public process. It is just a council resolution at that point.
Through you, the mayor, the removal of a holding is still a public process.
Okay, I know we've talked about it recently, so, but okay, we'll go with that one. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? It's a recommendation before you, Councillor. Oh, I'm sorry, there's actually two in front of us. We're going to move them together. Councillor Coleman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll move the two of them together and seeking your seconder, then I will speak to it.
Yep, looking for a second. Councillor Oakley and Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been waiting for a long time for this property to be developed. And there's a good news story for the Canesville area. A really good news. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote in this. Don't like asking for recorded votes, but I'm going to ask for one in this one. But I think this needs to be supported. I know there's a holding on it, and I think the community has been waiting for this. The only disappointing part is I'm going to lose little Louis someday down the road and whatnot. Maybe we can get that incorporated in the lower part of the building, but that would work. So, thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any other comments before we call the vote? No. Take it away, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. In accordance with what Council previously directed, I am going to ask all members of Council who vote in favor of the motion to please stand, including Councillor Garneau and Bell can raise their hands.
Yeah.
So, anyone in favor of the motion, please stand or raise your hand, please. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. The only sad piece to this is that I got my first job at that building when it was built. When it was the Villa Restaurant, I was a busboy when I was 15, and there was nothing else out there but the restaurant. So that'll be a sad day when it comes down, but I'll get over it. We're moving on to communications. We have done resolutions. We have done other business. Is there any other business? I didn't call for any. Anyone have anything for the betterment of the county of Brant to say now? Seeing none, we'll pass that. We'll go, nothing in camera. We're now going to go to bylaws. We're going to ask Councillor Kyle to take us to bylaws.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that bylaws 91-23 to 96-23 be now read a first time.
Okay, all those in favor of the first reading? Second reading, please, Councillor Kyle.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McAlpine that the bylaws 91-23 to 96-23 be read a second time and all clauses and preambles be adopted.
Are there any questions for the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, I'll ask for the third final reading of the bylaws. Oh, Councillor Pierce. Call the vote. All those in favor? Bell. Thank you. Now the final reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McAlpine that bylaws 91-23 to 96-23 be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed.
All those in favor of the third reading? Thank you. Takes us to number 13, which is our next meeting, which is September the 26th at 6 o'clock. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor